This is the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast, brought to you by Sysco. Sysco is here to help set you up for success by delivering high-quality foods, products, and services for your restaurant. Recording live to digital from the NCF&B studios in downtown Raleigh. Join us as we lead you into the kitchen, inside the bottle, and into the minds of the food and beverage industry. And now, sending back a cocktail because they simply didn't like it. It's Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And I would never send back a cocktail made with Broad Branch Distillery spirits, mainly because they're here in studio today, but also because of the quality.
Yeah, you don't want to offend.
And to tell us all about Broad Branch Distillery out there in Winston-Salem, joining us in studio today is the managing partner, Miss Anna Windham. Welcome.
Thank you.
And the master distiller, Mr. Donald Jenkins. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, welcome to the studio. Welcome to the Triangle. You got out from the Triad. You came out. Matthew, I accidentally stumbled upon the distillery.
So I heard, and I heard there was a lot of stumbling after leaving this distillery.
Yeah, it's your fault, by the way. So previous guest of the show, Peyton Smith, although you were not there for that episode,
Not
Matthew.
there. I've missed Peyton.
I ran roll call and you did not answer. Weiss. Previous guest of the show, Peyton Smith, pizza maker extraordinaire out there at Mission Pizza in Winston, was setting the table for us because we were doing a pizza case, which is where he just does all the pizzas, like straight up, like sitting at the bar, and provided like amazing food. And Felicia and I, we went out there and met some clients and proceeded to have like, I don't know, it was like 9-10 courses of like pizzas and other like accoutrements. But as we were going there, we're parking and I'm driving down the street and I look over, I go, oh, that's where Broad Branch Distillery is. And we were 12 minutes early, and I like to be very, very punctual always. I'm kidding. I was late today. But I was like, well, we have 12 minutes. I don't want to stand outside this place for 12 minutes not doing anything. So let's pop in. And I mean, just truth be told, I didn't know much about your distillery. You had sent us some fantastic samples to which we tried. My neighbors came over one time and made a couple of drinks, and then we tried them all, and then we tried all of them, and then that was the end of that.
I just need a pause here in this story, and I'm sorry we're going to get off the rails, but something's not adding up. You, Max Trujillo, arrived 12 minutes early to a place, and you think that you're, with your gregarious nature, gift of the gab, think that you are going to get in and out of a place in 12 minutes and still make your reservation?
Did we do it?
I think we did it.
Yeah, we did it.
In 12 minutes?
I had Felicia there. She was keeping me wrangled.
Oh, yeah, because that's stopped you in all your previous 22 years or whatever it will be in May of marriage.
Yes. No, but we went in. By the way, like, distilleries come in all shapes and sizes, especially around North Carolina. Like, I didn't know what to expect when we put you on the calendar. You know, we were like, okay, is this like small mom and pop type of shop? Is this, like, is it going to be like super modern and all this, whatever? I was pleasantly surprised. Right next to you is, and remind me, what's the name of the brewery next to you?
Fiddling Fish Brewing.
Fiddling Fish, that's right, yeah. Super cool looking brewery. I didn't get a chance to go in there. I only had 12 minutes. But we did go in. You're right next door. I walk in. I start jawing on with your bartender. I'm like, we're going to have you on the podcast. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And quickly, Donald, you saved them because they're like, we don't know what's going on here. you saved them. And you came out and you gave me, I was very specific. I'm like, I only got 12 minutes. Maybe try some things. And you ran through, how many drinks did we have?
I don't remember.
Maybe 6?
Yeah.
I think we went through like 6 in a very short amount of time. And then I proceeded to eat 10 courses of pizza right after that. So thanks, Peyton, for your love over there. But man, what a way to start. The place is beautiful. You are taking over the spot next door. We'll get into that. You have a whole bar that's going to be happening right there. But the environment is great. So like those that have gone to Mission Pizza, let's say, it's on the same block, and you just literally walk over there. And that whole area is super cool. You got Insomnia Donuts, like or cookies right across from Mission Pizza. But like that little neighborhood, there's a lot going on. So maybe like let's start right there. Let's start with the location and the environment. And what would you say? Like when did you open up in that spot?
So we've been there for about 9.5 years.
Okay.
When we opened, kind of coming from past Mission Pizza, it was us, Black Mountain Chocolate, which is no longer there, and the Rescue Mission. And that was it. There were all these buildings, but they were all just empty.
Yeah.
So when we first opened, there wasn't really much foot traffic, or at least foot traffic that you wanted coming through. And now we've gotten, I think, 3 breweries. Fiddle and Fish has been a great neighbor to us. We've gotten to do lots of fun things with parking lot events and collaborating on things. It's just been fantastic to watch the growth. We were actually an old tobacco auction house. It was an open-aired market.
Yeah.
And the people who bought the building kind of hollowed that out for us so that we were able to have parking in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's like if you're in Durham, it's kind of like the tobacco campus. So it kind of has a similar look or feel to it, but it's really nice and like modern and with like old, like classic meets modern, but beautiful layout, and then big windows where you can look into the distillery if you're sitting at the tasting bar and you kind of see all that. Maybe kind of run down that distillery a little bit. Like what are we looking at when we look through those windows?
So we've got a 600-gallon, keep my finger off that, 600-gallon cooker, otherwise known as a mash tun. We've got 4 600-gallon fermenters and then a 750-gallon still. So in any 1 week, we can produce 2,400 gallons of mash, which ultimately converts to around 500 gallons of what are called low wines, and we can go through the process if you'd like. And then to finish, we end up with approximately 150 to 200 gallons of finished product, 160 proof, 150 some odd proof.
Yeah.
And for those of the actually let's so before we even get there, let's get into the origin story, because Anna, this is a family owned business.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. What started your family into the spirits? Getting in distillery?
It's a great question. Mm-hmm. So my dad spent his life as a wine and beer distributor.
Okay. Which company do you work for?
He worked for American Premium Beverage.
Okay.
And he had a love for finding small brands, finding them kind of early on, and it didn't really matter. He liked to have really high quality, and that was always the most important thing to him. And once he got them, he just loved selling, and that's how he spent his life. He knew he always wanted to do something kind of later in life. He had a great friend, Nick Dumas, and they wanted to build something together. Our families are both Greek. Nick's family actually ran the still in the village in Greece where they were from. And Dad knew that he couldn't set up a winery because he said if it just rained too much or there was a drought, he would just look at his fields and just want to cry.
Yeah.
And so he decided distillery was what he wanted to do. Kind of later in life plan for both of them. Not exactly sure they knew exactly the physical labor involved when getting started with it, but took several years. It's an unbelievable amount of paperwork and laws and things to get through to get it set up.
You've been around for 9.5 years, you said?
We
you started
have.
9.5 years. So, I mean, like, I have to say, I've never heard of you before, but what is there a new found infusion, or what's how come you have come on our purview at this point? Are you guys focusing on marketing, or is it just getting bigger? What's happening?
I think we're at that point where enough people have been to the distillery, tried the product, that word is getting out. We hear that often. That people in town, we didn't know you were here. I don't know exactly why that is. I mean, we don't run ads necessarily. We primarily use social media. No billboards, anything like that. I think for the first 4 or 5 years, I never could figure it out, but it felt like John's intention was to be the best kept secret in Winston-Salem. We spent we did focus on the whiskey. I mean, I think that was the first goal, was to make sure it's good, to get it to that point and just fill as many barrels as we could. And we did. It was,
Well, brace yourself for the NC effing bump, as
That's
we
right.
said. So now the doors are just going to be slammed open because everybody in town.
Paparazzi. It's going to be nuts.
Yeah.
We're ready.
Get used to it. I hope you're okay with large crowds of people swarming and hearing about you and your product. I was pleasantly surprised though, because not really knowing much about your distillery and then receiving it was like kind of like a really cool sampler and had all this really great product in it. I want to go down the line because you're not doing just like your traditional, like, I don't know, American single malt whiskey and a bourbon or so. You're getting really intense with your blends and your sourcing and your aging. So maybe let's start right there. Like, Don, what would you say makes the place kind of unique with your style?
I would say it's two things. John understood the importance of aging. He would not let a barrel be dumped before its time. Like if, it stays in the barrel as long as it possibly can, which was wise. And secondly,
John is Anna's father?
yeah.
Okay.
John is one of the opening partners, John and Nick. And he wanted a product that was real quality. Anna mentioned it. We don't cut corners. We use fresh grain. We grind it fresh. So we'll grind on a Monday and start process on a Tuesday. We source water. We would never use city water. So we have what we call SCA water, which is Surrey County Artisanal Well Water.
Okay.
We have a 6,000-gallon tanker that comes in about every other month, fills up an 8,000-gallon tank. Anything we learn that could improve the quality of the spirit, we incorporate. Our philosophy is 53-gallon barrels in time. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. And to create whiskey that is familiar, it's always been aged in 53-gallon barrels. As a matter of fact, 53-gallon barrels are ideal for aging spirits in terms of surface area and how long you can age them. We have some of the oldest stock in North Carolina, thanks to John's philosophy, and that gives us a lot of different options in terms of what we're going to release, how we're going to release it. Are we going to do a blend, so on and so forth.
Are you only whiskey or
We do whiskeys and rum.
whiskey and rum?
Yeah, currently. So we've got bourbon, we've got rye. Rye's kind of our thing.
Okay.
We've got a rum. And
Are you making the rum in-house? Like you're distilling it from, where are you getting the sugar cane from or the molasses?
it is a secret, but
come
I can tell
Don.
you the Caribbean.
Okay.
Yeah. It is, we went through, it took us about 2 years. We went through a long process. We tried all kinds of different substrates, different grades of molasses, and we settled on a B grade molasses. So it's molasses, water, and yeast. And
Yeah.
Rum is different than most spirits in terms of production. It behaves differently.
Yeah.
Alcohol is magic, as we all know.
So I know a lot of local North Carolina distillers that do rum are typically white labeling it or having it made for them and aging it. So that's why that's a cool thing that you're making it yourself.
It was John wanted to.
Yeah.
This was the greatest thing. He gave us room to experiment. It's a bit nerve-wracking to think, that we're about to take a product that is worth thousands and thousands of dollars and put it in a barrel that we're not sure if it's going to work, or to dump that barrel into something. And he was kind of courageous in that way and set the tone. So we fearlessly produce these spirits, and so far we've had much more good luck than we have bad in terms of final product.
I have maybe a pretty novice question, but I'll ask it anyways. You're making the rum in the same still that you make your bourbon, yes?
Yep.
Okay. Does that ever affect the bottom line flavor profile, like using an old, ironclad pan, and you're like, oh yeah, the flavor's cooked in.
I never washed it.
Yeah. Does that have any residual effect by pumping in all this rum and then making rye, let's say, or vice versa?
So the still is cleaned well.
Oh, you wash
between
it.
processes. Yes. However, having said that, the style of the still informs every spirit that's made.
Right.
So, and you know, up to and including some folks will say if you're trying to replicate a still, if there's a ding in it somewhere, you make sure you put that ding in the one that you're building as well.
Yeah.
What's the name of your still?
Penny.
Is it copper?
There is copper incorporated. Yes, it is a combination of stainless steel and copper.
And you said it's remind me of what the
It's a pot still.
a pot still? Okay.
So column stills are good for two things. One, if you're producing volume, a large amount of volume, they're called continuous stills. And secondly, if you're trying to produce vodka, because it can distill up to like 180, 190 proof.
Yeah.
A pot still, we max out around 170. That's with an extra run thrown in. Having said that, a pot still, in my opinion, really brings out the character of that grain. We do several things to maintain that grain flavor throughout the process, but the pot still, for my money.
Are you always in all your whiskeys using the same mash bill, or are you switching them up for different?
So we have our standard mash bill.
Can you share?
Yeah, it's a ultra low rye.
Okay.
To the tune of 6% rye, 8% barley, and 86% corn.
Okay.
And you would think with that little bit of rye, and now our rye is special, by the way. It's we ship it from Washington State.
Okay.
It is an heirloom variety that could best be described as a winter desert rye. And we actually tried to have it grown in North Carolina because, believe it or not, it's incredibly expensive to ship 40,000 pounds of grain from Washington State.
Can imagine.
Yeah.
And it was radically different. Terroir makes a radical difference. It's the exact same grains.
Yeah.
And our determination was if it tastes different, then we're not going to do it. And
I think we need to taste this stuff.
Yeah.
To just kind of get it going.
But also, let's just get in a quick word from our proud title sponsor, Cisco.
While we can talk all day about cooking up the most delicious barbecue, artisanal pizza, or craft cocktails, it's the business and branding side of things that often determines the success in the industry.
That's why Cisco, the global leader in food service, is the best resource to keep your brand strong. Cisco knows that great ingredients are only one part of your recipe for success. By understanding your unique needs, they can offer you powerful solutions to run every aspect of your business.
How, you might ask? Well, Cisco has a team of experts that go in depth into consulting, covering everything from profit and loss statements to keeping your menu on trend. Whether you're looking for training materials or food cost advantages or service ideas, Cisco has the expertise to fit your needs.
Visit Cisco.com. That's SYSCO.com to learn more about all the great ways Cisco can boost your restaurant's business.
Cisco, at the heart of food and service.
And one more note, this is our favorite coffee that we're drinking right now. This is from Carborough Coffee Roasters. This is the Annabella Meneses Santa Felisa Estate, the Red Typica. This is a beautiful coffee. It has notes of plum, purple, grape, chocolate, brown sugar, and it's silky mouthfeel. So if you like this or all of the unique farmer-based coffees that Carborough Coffee Roasters does, go to carboroughcoffeeroasters.com and you can buy it directly from there. I recommend signing up for their Set It and Forget It package that will just arrive monthly with a bunch of different coffees. carboroughcoffee.com. If it's grown, raised, caught, or made in North Carolina, it's got to be NC. Look for the GTB NC signs to shop for what's truly local.
For those that listen to this show that are on the inside, you might be a chef, a restaurant owner, you make a consumer packaged good, a farmer. Well, become a member of Got to Be NC, because becoming a member not only helps with public events such as trade shows, farmers markets, but we also do these educational trips like the chef field trip to Tidewater Grain, for instance, or going to the NCRLA Chef Showdown or the NRA Food Show in Chicago. Got to Be NC supports local producers and purveyors and really helps bring them all together to support local.
Go to their website, Got to Be NC, GOTTOBENC.com.
If it's got to be, it's got to be NC.
The room smells amazing right now.
Yeah, this, okay. this was just poured all around the room for everybody to try. And what are we tasting here?
So this is our flagship rye, Rye Fidelity. It is 6 years old. It's bottled in bond, which means it's coming in at 100 proof. And we won some big awards with this one last year. We sent it off to San Francisco World Spirits.
Yeah.
We call it kind of the Oscars of the spirits world.
Yeah.
And it got a double gold, which means all 64 judges gave it a gold medal in a blind tasting. So we're pretty proud of this one.
Yeah, you're not messing around. This was the first thing I believe you tasted me on when I was here, when I was at the distillery.
And
but you're gonna have to win over this guy over here. This guy, I'm pretty impressed so far. I mean, the smell, the Washington State rye, the bottled in bond, checking all the boxes before I even taste it. So this is, I'm assuming, the Washington State rye that you're talking about.
This is correct.
And what's the mash bill in this?
It is rye, water, and yeast. 100%.
So it's 100% rye.
100% rye. It's you don't see that often in distilleries because rye has a protein that has to be dealt with, and if you do not, then you're going to get foaming in your cooks, in your fermentations, and in your distillation. And most distillers will run. We managed to have the patience to continue, and we tamed it. And
that is my jam right there. Wow.
Okay, Matt used to be, hard to convince, and I think this is a product of North Carolina just upping their game at doing really good product, and it's no slight on you as well. Again, I didn't know what to expect, and when I received the product in the mail and we tried it, it was like, oh, this is pretty good. Okay, and all my
Funny,
neighbors.
you never shared.
You live in Holly Springs, man.
Never shared.
Yeah, well. So this
We'll leave
shit
you
happens.
something behind.
Yeah, but I'll claim this one.
Yeah, but then the experience of going to the distillery and then also just getting the pour from the distiller with a great explanation doesn't hurt either. Matt, what do you think?
I'll just say this will be high praise, but for those of you out there, I used to work for Heaven Hill, and I used to love and tout the exploits of Pikesville rye, which is also a rye that's bottled in bond, and I will say that this has everything that has and more. It has this rounder, just like a ripe fruit flavor profile, but still with the spice of the rye. That is incredible.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So what did this one double gold at San Francisco? Which that's the highest you can get, right? Double gold.
It is. If you win double gold 3 times, you go platinum. But yeah.
Okay, got it. But that's and you're aging these in 53-gallon barrels. They're not. Are they new barrels or are they?
Yeah, when they're filled, they are new American oak.
Okay. And how long are you aging these for?
This is a 6-year product. So this is. We also have anniversary edition that comes out every year. This year's was 9.5 years.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Last year's was 9.5 years. This year.
So it was
over 10.
one of the first whiskeys you made then with the 9.5 years.
Oh yeah, we started making this almost immediately.
And this is, obviously, this is like you're making it from scratch. This is a grain to glass production. Not that there's anything wrong with anyone buying.
Well, they're not growing the grain.
We're not growing
buying the grain. So
sure. Sorry.
Yeah.
But you are taking all raw products and then making it.
We have I don't know exactly how many barrels of rye we have, but we've got over 400 barrels of spirit in the distillery, and those were made grain to glass.
Yeah.
Ground fresh, cooked, fermented, distilled, all that.
I am spitting because I have to work for the rest of the day, but I want to just sit here and enjoy some whiskey. So wow, well done.
I'm getting my hair cut after this, so it's nice with a little buzz on.
Conversation with Mick today is going to be extra special.
A little buzz with the buzz,
I'll have to say, I talk about this all the time, but one of my favorite bourbons was the Elijah Craig 12-year.
Yeah.
But it was prior to the bottle change. It was in that old bottle. It was actually 12 years.
That old bottle was classic. Yeah.
On occasion, you can find that as a single barrel.
Yeah.
That.
For sure.
So have you been the distiller from the beginning?
I have been a distiller from the beginning, yes. There was myself and another distiller from early on, and now it's myself and Jacob, who is he was an assistant distiller. At this point, I would call him a distiller.
Yeah.
Anna, are you a whiskey drinker yourself?
I was not a whiskey drinker.
Okay.
We grew up spending our free time going to wineries,
Yeah.
and touring them. And as a child, it was not very interesting and not very much fun. But as I grew older, I learned that was a really cool thing to have around. But no, we were not. Dad did not sell spirits, so we didn't have spirits really in the house.
Yeah.
But once my sister and I started helping about 7 years ago at the distillery, and I went from not being able to drink it to drinking things straight out of the barrel at barrel proof. It's interesting how you can just
This
develop
is an
a taste for it.
intervention, actually. What this whole episode is for.
Yeah. Stop getting high on your own supply. No.
Calm it down.
What is? Do you have a favorite?
I love.
I hate
our
that
rye.
question, but yeah,
I
you love
really do love our rye. And
Okay.
I do, as much as I like things straight, I do have to say I'm more of a cocktail person.
Sure.
And it's fun that we can finally make cocktails at the distillery.
What does this cost me if I'm buying this at the ABC store?
$70, $69.95. Everything in North Carolina ends in 95, so we just round up.
That sounds super reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did think when I first tried this that we were getting close to like 100 and something.
Yeah.
Just that this is super high quality.
And the packaging,
The
as
bottle
well.
is beautiful. Yeah. And also, I'll say this, like rye tends to be spicy, I guess you'd say. And like kind of, it's like, for those that don't know a lot about the difference between like bourbon and single malt and rye and all those things, I would just say like a blanket statement is the rye is the one that puts the hair on your chest.
Yeah.
Like it's aggressive typically, right? And this does not drink aggressively, but it's not wimpy.
No.
It's like it knows what it's doing and it's gonna put you in its place.
It's like when chefs use spice for flavor as opposed to heat. Like
Exactly.
it's there,
Yeah.
but it doesn't give you that like, kind of feeling where you're like breathing oxygen in your mouth to cool down the spice. All right, I'm hooked. What do we try next?
Yeah. Let's taste some more as we're doing this.
Some bourbon, do you think?
Yeah, sure. So we did
This is the port.
last year. We did a couple of barrel finished,
Pass the
cask
bottle
finished
and maybe
bourbons.
Yes.
Okay.
This is a port finished.
A port finished.
Yeah.
Where'd the port casks come from?
This my assistant distiller, when he first moved to North Carolina, was working with Rayland Vineyards,
Okay.
and he continued to work on occasion with Rayland Vineyards as he was working with us.
I've heard good things about them.
Yeah, so this is actually Ruby Port that was from Rayland Vineyards at the barrel. We got it the day it was dumped. They unfortunately are no longer Rayland Vineyards. They have sold, and the name has changed to
Ray Sun.
Ray Sun.
But they still do
Vineyards.
great things.
When did that happen? That's recent.
It is recent. It was quick and recent.
They were bought by the people who Jolo
Okay.
Winery.
Oh yeah.
So this bottle is special because it potentially is one of the last barrels
the
from
Raylan
Rayland.
rename of Ray Sun was recent.
That is
Thank
true.
you.
Yeah.
Say that 3 times fast.
bourbon's
Raylan
working.
recent,
I'm sure
Raylan
you've had a
recent,
few
Raylan
glasses.
recent.
Yeah, the whiskey's working, my friend.
Okay, so let's talk about this cask finished. And is this something you traditionally had done, or you saw the trend and did it? Or?
So we did our first cask finish 2 years ago. It was a cognac finished bourbon. It turned out really, really well. We did, I think, 3 months in the finishing cask. We did the same on these. And from here out, we've got at least 2 barrels of cask finished slated for the foreseeable future.
Okay. For those of you out there listening who might be new to bourbon, it's kind of a loophole a little bit in bourbon is that you can't add anything to bourbon except water, corn, and the other amount of grains that you can put in, but it has to be a minimum of 51% corn, and then it has to be aged in new American oak, charred new American oak. But there's no written rules about finishing. And so you technically are adding a flavor there. And I guess it's now an accepted thing. Like before, people used to have this negative connotation with it, but then
Wasn't it like Angel's Envy was the first one to come in, and that like purists were always like, "Oh, Angel's Envy is for children that love sweet."
Yes.
It's like it had that almost cognac feel to it.
Yeah.
And but those that could actually look outside of that and see like the artistry that was happening there, kind of understood like, "Oh no, this is just another tool in the toolbox to make something."
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Are like hardcore whiskey drinkers, fans, knowledgeable, are they still having the negative connotation, or has it been accepted
Well,
now?
considering that Angel's Envy sells their shit at a very high volume
Yeah,
rate,
but I
don't
mean,
think that matters. Although,
Miami Pinot Noir.
Miami Pinot Noir
so,
sells. Stop buying that Miami, everybody. Come on, it's crap.
Yeah.
So I would say that, in my estimation, from my observations, in years past, everybody, you had your Jack guys, you had your Jim gals. It's like they would find a spirit they enjoyed, and that was their spirit. These days, I think the men and women who are collectors or they search, they want variety. So it's not like we're aiming necessarily to become their one and only. We just want a slot in their rotation. So on somebody's shelf, you're not going to see like a single bottle. You're going to have a variety. And so, and at least for me, some of the most exciting things I run into aren't even straight classifications. So it's not, a straight bourbon or a straight rye. It's things that ultimately get classified by the TTB as a whiskey.
Right.
Because something's changed, but it makes it interesting. It doesn't mean the quality's any less.
Right.
It just simply means you're getting ready to try something that you probably haven't tried before.
Like, for example, if you decided, hey, you know what, in this mash bill, I only want 48% corn. I'm making it up. But then all of a sudden, now you can't call it bourbon.
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. So we have a product, we call it our Wood Exploration Series. And did you bring one? Oh, she brought one. You're going to get to try it. This is great. So talking about finishing, the way this one works is it's 100% Washington State rye. It spends the first 6 months of its life in a barrel that was used to age smoked stout.
Okay.
It's then moved into what they call an STR barrel. So in our case, it's a 59-gallon red wine barrel that was scraped, retoasted, recharred.
Okay.
Right? So the benefit of that is you don't get nearly as much oak as you would from new American oak over 9.5 years. But bringing that smoked stout barrel in, you're going to pull some constituents from that barrel that find their way into that 9.5 years or 9 years in the STR barrel that are going to change the game. And the TTB has a really hard time. It doesn't. What is it labeled as? I think it's just across the bottom.
120. Rye whiskey aged in smoked stout and recharred wine barrels.
Yep.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, this is a single barrel, non-chill filtered. We'll get into that. That's 120 proof. And you're saying the age statement on this is 9 years?
9, yeah.
So this is the same rye that we had in that first whiskey, but now that's thus the Wood Exploration. I'm kind of spelling this out, but also wrapping my own head around it. And so, so in a stout barrel, and then it gets into a recharred STR barrel.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's delightful. It is. I'm sure you've tried quite a few whiskeys in your time.
I don't know what you mean. Is that an accusation? Or?
So see if you don't think this is just fun.
So was 9 because you've been sampling over the years and you realized this was the time, or was this like a predetermined decision to go 9 years?
So, a few years ago, I sat down to try to plan out a number of years into the future in terms of what barrels we're going to dump, what we're going to release when. And this just made its way onto the list. And
so will this product change over time by exploring different wood
Yeah.
combinations?
Currently, no. So what we've got, we started with 4 barrels, and then there was a break. So what we'll normally do is we'll run a test on something, be our malt. We'll end up with 4 barrels, or sometimes even just 1 barrel, and then we give it some time to age. And before we, write into stone what that mash bill is going to be, how it's going to work, we'll go back and we'll check with that barrel, see how that's working out, and then either make adjustments or continue moving forward. So that's where this kind of started. We really liked the 4 barrels, and since we have filled a number of barrels that were used to age stout with this rye.
That's so interesting to taste that juxtaposed with the first rye, but yeah, it's definitely like exploring those different flavors. When I'm noticing one like signature thing coming from your whiskeys, and it's the mouthfeel. You have this incredibly viscous, round mouthfeel. It's fantastic. What's the how do you get that? How do you achieve that?
I agree, and I love that about our whiskey. It also typically tends to drink not quite as hot as the proof may.
Yeah, because this is
imply.
120 proof, and it doesn't feel that way.
So I think it's three things. I think the first and most important is the still. I think the still will affect the mouthfeel, the quality, the nature of the whiskey more than just about anything else prior to barrel. Second would be the way we proof. So there's a lady named Nancy Fraley. You may have heard of this woman. They call her the nose in the industry. And you can literally send her a
she's
sample.
Consulted on. We've had a few distillers that have worked with her, and her palate is insane.
It's true.
Yeah.
You can send her a sample.
We need to have Nancy on the podcast.
Oh, you should.
Yeah, the nose knows.
And a quick note: she is also a musician, which we can talk about later. I've been watching her Instagram. Anyway, she studied under a brandy maker, and as far as the distillation world is concerned, the folks that make brandy, like from the old world, recipes, they're no joke. I mean, they proof with rainwater. They bring it down 5 proof points every 8 months, and it's intense. And so she informed us that ideally we would bring the proof down on our spirits slowly, so it's not crash proofing. You don't just use an app for that. You run it. I need this much water. You put it all in, stir it up. A lot of distilleries do that. It works.
But it's more like shocking to the whiskey?
Yeah. Yes. So spirits, I have come to learn, they don't need to be on a boat going around the world or be shaken up or be played rock and roll to. They really just want peace and quiet.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of activity going on in that barrel. So the same is true of proofing. Like they want gentle, they want a paddle, they don't want, a drill. You have to treat them gently and let them do their own thing. And so one of the things we do is, if said app implies we need this much water, we're going to take that into 3 parts. We're going to add it slowly. And it affects the way that spirit drinks.
Yeah.
The third is we use the barrels we use typically from ISC, the Independent Stave Company in Kentucky. We have found a true value in the 24-month air dried. You can get the kiln dried; they're less expensive. But again, it's a corner we don't cut. So we found out early on that these, if you let those staves dry in the air, certain things grow.
Yeah.
Affect the pores, affect the wood. And we've had the opportunity to test side by side kiln dried versus 6 month versus 24 month. And the 24 month is magic. So credit where credit's due. The yeast and the barrels do a whole lot of the heavy lifting.
Sure.
We manage all that.
So, I feel like we talk about the yeast and inoculation in wine and beer and stuff like that, but are you always pitching the same yeasts as well to start fermentation in all of your spirits?
Yes.
Is that a cultivated yeast that you've come up with, or like what?
It is we start with fresh yeast each and every time.
Okay.
So it comes in dried form. As far as I can tell in distilling, although I'm sure people use other strains and some cultivate their own, but there's 2 main types, and it's with any yeast producers, you'll get, for example, we use Red Star, the dry active distiller's yeast. They also have a whiskey yeast, and these 2 yeasts produce a different flavor. So Heaven Hills, in my opinion, typically has kind of a sweeter top end, a little more fruity, whereas, say, your Buffalo Trace, a little more earthy, a little more nutty. And I think those are good examples of what those different yeasts do. The reason I say there's only really 2 options in the distilling world is that very few yeast can handle the amount of alcohol. Like currently our highest production is around 14% alcohol by volume. Most yeast can't stand that.
Yeah, you'll kill it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we use the same yeast on everything, and we've had to great success, I should say.
It's awesome.
Yeah, this is great. This is cool stuff. Let's get to Anna, maybe you can answer the business side of things now. I think you were saying you do something like a 2,400 gallons you can produce. That's
mash, and then all the way down to spirit, it's 150 to 200 gallons or so.
Well, actually, I'm curious because having been there, I want to know, because you have a lot of exciting plans to open up and expand and have this bar. and I'm going to put this up on the video for those that are watching on YouTube. We are on YouTube. You can watch this show, but this is a good reason to watch it because I took a little bit of video when I went to your distillery and looked at what is coming. And you guys are in the process of building this brand new bar that is literally just one door that opens up from your tasting bar right now. That's going to turn into like a massive playground for the locals.
So we've been out of storage space for at least 5 years. I mean, we have gotten to the finish line 4 times, like signed on the dotted line of finding storage space, and then something has fallen through with the inspector. Anyway. So it's like a game of Tetris. I mean, you have to be a very good forklift driver to work in our production area, which they keep me out of the production area for that good reason. But so the space next door to us opened up, and it actually opened up about a year ago. We actually originally took over the space. Broad Branch put a bar in there. Our next door neighbors, Fiddle and Fish, had a beer stand in there, and we were running food out of there. And we used it kind of as a community space. But as time went on, we just realized we are just so out of room that maybe it was a better use of space for Broad Branch to take over the entire space. So we just completed a renovation where we still have our bar. We can showcase our own spirits. We've got other people's spirits, wine, beer, cider, seltzers, all kinds of things. The back half is now connected to our back half production facility. We're going to be able to get about 275 barrels in there, hopefully. And we've got windows into it so you can have your cocktail and look at the barrels. And we're just so excited for all the possibilities of classes we can do in there to educate people about the spirits and have music and all different kinds of ways that we can utilize the space.
It's a bar. Like you can go in there and drink and hang out and have fun and like be silly.
Yes.
It's like a wild, I mean, it looks awesome, and it's not even complete when I saw it. It's you guys are still like working on it a little bit, but you're really close. At least when I saw it just a couple weeks ago, and so I can imagine you're probably ready to go pretty soon. When is it going to be open?
Well, the bar, we kept running it through construction. On Friday, the sheetrockers would finish and we would clean like crazy people. We currently just run the bar Thursday through Sundays as the days that we're open. So we were open all through it, but construction is officially complete.
Okay, so when I saw it,
we're very excited.
That makes sense. Okay, so when I saw it, I guess you were probably doing some construction, so you put some things up.
Yes.
But it's been operable this whole time.
It has been operable. It's just been... It's been a lot of work to get it cleaned and ready, but we did it.
So, but that means then, is there talks to get a second still?
Not in the immediate future.
Okay.
There's not enough. This is just going to kind of hold us over for like a year or two on barrel storage.
And
we would need an off-site.
As far as business goes, are you in every ABC board in the state?
There are 100 counties in North Carolina. There are 174 ABC boards.
Yeah.
To get into those boards, you usually have to get in front of them. We have 5 of us that are full-time employees, and there's just not enough hours in the day. So we're in the major boards. People can always ask their board if it's something that they want to have in. But, we're small, and my dad always said this was the most backwards business plan ever because – you're making stuff now that you're not going to sell for 6 years, 9 years.
Sure.
And so it takes a long time to build up. So every year we have more and more inventory that we can release. We've just started selling in South Carolina.
That was my question are you distributing outside of the state? Yeah.
Just in South Carolina now.
Okay.
But it takes a long time to have enough inventory. You don't want to sell yourself out so that you don't have anything in years to come. Don's done a great job for us.
Sounds like you guys need a good sales rep. I know Jeremy Powers was a free agent, so he's always a good guy. Give him a call. I have his number. Okay, so sorry, you said I just wanted to wrap my brain around the amount of production. So you said you can make 200 gallons in what amount of time?
It is in what I call a single run. So it's
200 gallons. And how often are you running the still? Is it every single day?
From January through October-ish.
Okay. And then you take a break for the holidays and
there's
where you just don't want the whiskey coming off in that weather?
No, it's not that. It's more that there's vacations, and then there's holidays, and then there's the unknown.
Yeah.
What's
on
going to
wood.
break down next? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
So any one thing goes wrong, it
It's
can
like a
put you
time
out.
to repair.
Yeah, and the problem is if you book straight through and something goes wrong and it pushes into that next year, then you are forever behind.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to ever catch up.
Okay.
You know?
So it's a
because
tactical strategic break.
It is. And what we've tried to do over the past few years is maximize our efficiency and our production. So with the setup that we have, what we're trying to do is produce the absolute most whiskey we can before, having to move to.
Do you guys have a big party on that last day of the run of the year?
No. Every day is a party at distillery.
Oh, okay. What's the how do you age the barrel? Or you said about meticulous forklift Tetris placement, but like, do you have rick houses? Do you how many stories?
It's all the barrels are stored there. So it's what we've done is in the very back of the distillery. There's a wall that connects with the space next door, which is now the bar and barrel storage, and they've basically cut a very large door that we can fit a forklift through if necessary into the barrel section next door. And in the front of that space is the bar.
Okay.
So everything we have is in that distillery.
And how is it organized? Like, is it floors like a traditional?
No. So it's we use racks. Right?
Okay.
So you have two options when you're storing barrels. You can use racks or you can use pallets. What I have heard about pallets is that it adds an extra 20% in terms of aging time to the
so
barrel.
they age quicker.
They age less quickly.
Okay.
Longer, yeah.
So if they're standing up on a head, you get four on a pallet. It's more space efficient, but it takes longer.
Okay.
And isn't necessarily as
Well, it's not how it was
Good.
designed. It was designed to age on its side.
agreed. And in a rick house for sure. And so we use barrel racks. We have two varieties. One, 2-rack, right? So we can stack three of those high. Fire Marshal lets us go 3 high with any of our racks. And then we have 4 racks, which are much larger and more unwieldy than the 2 racks. But both we can go 3 high, and that limits storage quite a bit.
How much difference are you finding from at this point in your warehouse from barrels in different sections and different levels and stuff like that? Is that a very important part of the blending process, or you're finding a lot of similarities?
So we do very little blending. Our Franks currently is a vatting situation where we have. Do we bring Frank's Reserve?
Didn't bring
as well?
Frank's.
Okay, so Frank's Reserve is our night lab, which is a 150-year-old moonshine recipe. Moonshine traditionally is corn and white sugar co-fermented. This product starts with a whiskey build. So it's corn, rye, and barley co-fermented with Louisiana cane sugar, finished with hops. And in that form, that is our night lab. If we take that distillate with slightly different cuts and put it in New American Oak and European Oak for 3 years, then I blend 2 New American Oak, 1 European Oak, and we produce what's called Frank's Reserve. It drinks like a low rye bourbon, makes some of the best old fashions you've ever had, is not a bourbon, right? Technically. And again, this falls into that category of like, yes, it's not a bourbon, but it tastes like a bourbon and it makes really great old fashions. Perhaps you should check it out.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated with these questions with family-owned business. What do you think the capacity or potential, or what maybe there is a plan about how much you guys would like to get to, like at any one point, in terms of barrel production or things like that?
I think in our current space, we're maxed out on barrel production.
It's about 80 to 100 a year.
Yeah.
80 to 100 barrels a year.
Yeah. And, everyone's got a great plan of getting off-site, a whole nother production facility where you could produce more. But I think at this time, we're just focusing on what we've got currently, and that would be more of a long-range plan. My sister and I kind of came into this accidentally. Our dad started it with Nick Dumas, his partner. Nick, unfortunately, after about 3 years in, passed away in an ATV accident. And our dad ended up, he's now got Alzheimer's. So he brought my sister and I in when our youngest started school. He was like, all right, girls, it's time to get back to work. And we were able to work with him and learn from him and how he wanted things done. And he's got Don, who, they worked so close. So we're just kind of following his roadmap. And, And that's
cool.
That's how we're doing it.
And let me say, we are at this point a female-owned business, right? Anna and Natalie run the place, but like she said, they weren't expecting this to happen. Anna's got twins, 2 kids. Natalie's got 3 kids. They both have husbands.
Yeah,
and like a life of some sort outside of this. It is truly amazing, like the fact that they can pull this off.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Daily and not they don't miss a beat. You know,
Depends on the day.
yeah, but it's really impressive. You know,
I can imagine how challenging it would be, especially too because this process is not easy. Like if you're running beer, you know how much production you have, and you know how much you need to make for like the next level. But when you're aging things that take 9 years to finish, or just whatever, I mean, your forethought, and then just because everything changes all the time, like the flavor profiles and technology and just what's cool, which you can't predict. Sometimes you can be a trendsetter on, but everything changes. So it's a tough business. It's a risky business, but in the end, I mean, if you do what you do well, then like the juice wins, right? I guess like if you do it that way. But yeah, it can't be easy. I imagine. Sounds fun though.
But it's fun. It's amazing to get to to do something to honor his legacy.
Yeah.
Is what we just really enjoy.
So the bottle in your hand looks like it's honoring a different soul's legacy.
Yes.
If I'm to see here, let me put that closer up to the camera here. Boykin.
So the Boykin Spaniel is the dog of South Carolina. There's a North Carolina artist, Bob Timberlake, and he drew this dog. It was his son's dog. When the dog passed away, he made this sketch. Bob Timberlake signs all of the labels for us. There's 75 from each barrel. He actually hand paints signs and numbers, and then we send a portion of the proceeds back to the Boykin Spaniel Society. This is a 4-year-old single barrel rye inside.
and also bottled in bond.
It is also
very
bottled
cool.
in bond.
So this is
This
the
bouquet is crazy.
this
and
is
it's very
literally the exact same bourbon you tried in the
Rye.
6 year. I'm sorry, the exact same rye you tried in the 6 year, just younger. And honestly, like I love both of them.
Yeah.
They're just exact same spirit,
and the
different age.
so but I guess like on the marketing side, or the idea of doing this was to kind of hit it from a different angle.
Right.
You're trying something a little different in a sense, but also kind of to give back to like a different organization
Correct.
or so. Yeah.
Correct.
This is. We gotta try this.
When you kind of think of Boykins are hunting dogs, they bred the spaniel, a smaller version of it, so that it could sit on the front of the boat and it could go duck hunting. So you think of hunting and whiskey. I mean, it just kind of goes kind of hand in hand together.
I thought it was, as we're in March Madness, homage to Earl Boykins. You remember that guy?
Wasn't he like the real short guy?
Yeah. He was like Muggsy Bogues, or I think he was after Muggsy Bogues, but he played for a real small school. I wanted to say Michigan State or like Central Michigan or something like that, but he was like a pretty awesome player at like 5'3" or something like that.
Speaking
Which
of
is-
just dogs in general, we just had
St. Patrick's Day.
If you've noticed on social media, but my daughters and I, we drew on our dog on all of his white parts green. So she was, I called him a temporary Irish setter for the weekend. Maybe it's a little bit of animal abuse, but he loved it. He loved it.
He loved the attention.
Yeah, like we just used Crayola water-based pens, and we drew all over his face and on his back, and we put a heart on his belly. He loved it. He just loved, hanging out with us and drinking beer with us. It was good.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thank you for coming and sharing your wares here. Very impressive. And I will say that for all of you out there, you got to go to Broad Branch Distillery, get yourself some of this whiskey, and you will drink extremely merrily.
Thanks for listening to the NC F&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.